Good to be with you again here with Adam as we are going to recap a little bit from the sermon from yesterday. And so we're glad to be back with you, and we'll jump right into it. So we have plenty of time. We got several things we need to talk about.
Things going on.
First of all, it's VBS week.
Yes, looking forward to it. VBS always a highlight of the year around here, and really thankful for those that have prepared and have been planning, and looking forward to a great week Monday through Thursday, 5:30 to 8:15 every night. And VBS is something. Even as I was a kid, I remember that there's still vivid memories in my mind from certain things that went on. And I hadn't shared this with a lot of people, but Vacation Bible School, and maybe a little different. Everybody's big on the decorations and the stories and the games. One of the things that really discipled me about VBS was giving. That's where I really learned to give towards the missions effort. And so you never know how Vacation Bible School is going to impact all these kids that'll be here this week.
Yeah, that's right. You never know. And talking about the missions, I think we decided on the missions emphasis this week is going to be on Awazi Ministries.
Yep.
And we had Tanya on. I think everybody saw that podcast last week, and she did an excellent job.
Well, I think it'd be something, we've talked with Michelle and some others, and so this Awazi thing, I think it's really going to connect with our kids.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we're going to be supporting the school over there with the kids who are there, and so I think it'd be really neat.
It is.
And hopefully the kids get behind it.
Yeah, that's right.
So
well, we're definitely excited about that, and then kind of jumping off of that, we've had the baptisms that are taking place here. It's amazing just to sit back and watch God work. In people's lives. And
the baptisms are always exciting.
Yeah.
But it's the conversations leading up and to hear the stories about how God, Titus Waldrop a couple of weeks ago, and the way God brought that together and has been working his life. And then yesterday, kind of really a totally different scenario with one of our youth, Ali Romick, who had made a profession of faith earlier, and then the Lord brought to an awareness that wasn't genuine and wasn't real. And so really thankful for his work, and I use this word carefully when we talk about being baptized, because we're bragging on Jesus, but I'm very proud of Allie to humble herself, because a lot of people in this church remember when she was baptized.
That's right.
To say that baptism wasn't real, and that baptism wasn't because I was a believer. I did it for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And now God's brought me to my senses. And really, in the upcoming weeks, I've got 3 meetings this week with parents and kids who are having gospel conversations in their home. Kids are asking questions, and so really excited about that and what's ahead. And that's before even VBS starts.
That is exciting, and it is wonderful, to hear, like you were saying, the stories and the people talking about what's going on in their homes. We have a lot of families who are doing some discipling in their homes, and
that's where it should start.
That's exactly right. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump right into it today. So, latest sermon was out of Matthew 22, verses 1 through 14, as you've continued working through the book of Matthew this year, and a chapter each week. And so we're in 22, the parable of the wedding banquet.
Yep. We had a lot of fun with this. This is, it's hard to say which is my favorite parable, because there's a lot of good ones, but this is one that I go back to because it's so rich with the gospel. It's rich with the love of God, and it's rich with warning for us. And so 14 verses here that we looked at yesterday, and man, they are crammed full with not only pictures of the gospel, but application of the gospel in our lives and what that looks like. And so we see here this banquet where a king throws a banquet for his son, and we know that is God the Father preparing the wedding feast for his son Jesus. And so we see some similarities there, and he's inviting these people who knew about the banquet, and for one reason or another, they reject the invitation. They don't show up. And so he continues. He just pursues them over and over and over. And then he goes to a different group of people. And he says, invite them. And then there's a person at the wedding feast that doesn't have the right garment on. And we spent a lot of time yesterday talking about that. And so, this feast, I really want us to look at some things this morning just as a reminder, kind of building off of what we talked about yesterday. I made a statement. I think it came from Dale Bruner, who is a pastor and commentator, and I've read a lot of him in this Matthew series. My first introduction to him, he's been really good and really insightful. He made the statement that warning is love. Warning is love. And I used a couple illustrations in the sermon the picture of a beware of dog sign on the fence. And then if you go to the beach, the double red flags, which is a picture of warning about undertow and rip currents and things of that nature. And we give warnings because we love people. We don't want them to get hurt. We don't want them to be harmed. And in the same way, this parable and other parables and other teachings of Jesus, these are warnings. And God loves us enough, and he knows us well enough. He knows that warning is needed at times because we can be self-deceived. And so we talked about 3 different reasons that we would reject God's invitation to a relationship with him, that we would reject the joy and the delight that he's offering us. And those are apathy. There were people in this parable that were just totally apathetic. They had no desire for God. And so I believe, that this is a good time for us to evaluate, where is the apathy in our life? Are we growing more apathetic in our daily walk with Christ, in our being present for corporate worship, in our commitment to serve and lead our families? Is there areas of apathy? Are there areas of apathy in our life that we really need to address, where we would say, I'd rather be at the business, I'd rather be doing one of my hobbies, rather than what God's called me to. And so you see apathy. The other one was hostility. There were those that were outright hostile towards God, and they killed the messengers that he sent. And then the final one we looked at was in conjunction with this gentleman that shows up and has the wrong attire on for the wedding banquet, and that's hypocrisy. That he was attending the feast in name only. He really had no desire to honor the king, to honor the king's son. He was there because of self-righteousness. And as we think about this, I see this in my own life, Randy. And I'm sure that if everyone evaluated themselves, that there are areas of apathy. There's areas of hypocrisy in our life where we're following Jesus in name only. That when nobody else is around, we're not following him. We find rhythms in our life that aren't disciplined, and we're not growing. And, as you think about these 3 areas of rejection, the ways that we reject the invitation of God to spend time with him, to serve him, to minister to others, and ultimately be a part of his kingdom, specifically as we think about apathy and hypocrisy, how can that play out? What does that look like, maybe even in your own life, maybe in some things that you've seen that we need to be constantly concerned about and focused on so that we don't fall into those patterns?
Yeah, definitely all of those examples. I mean, we see that every day in our society. But, and these are things we talk about all the time, but I think prayer life is a big one that all of us, at times, and I know like you and I and a lot of people we are the type of people that we make lists and we're about getting that done during the day. And, if you're not careful, you've gone a whole day without saying a prayer, without giving a thought to God, without spending any time with him whatsoever, and we can come to church and kind of sometimes pretend to be super spiritual and that type of thing, and can go a whole week without spending a lot of time with the Lord. And that's one of those things that you can't turn that on and off like a light switch.
Nope.
You have to spend time with the Lord. That builds up to your worship on Sunday, which leads me to another point in that, in our society, Christians, sometimes we see that apathy play out in the importance of meeting with your church family to worship on Sundays and Wednesdays. And we let a lot of other things get in the way and try to justify it.
Well, I've got my business, I got my hobbies, just exactly what was said here in Matthew 22. The dangerous thing, and I think I mentioned this in the sermon, the dangerous thing about hypocrisy, and really about apathy too, but we really see this with hypocrisy, that we're a Christian in name only, we're going through the motions. It's a dangerous thing. Hypocrisy is such a dangerous thing because, let's take us for example. We're trying to lead the church and serve the church, and so we're doing God things and Jesus things. Isn't it a dangerous trap to fall into, to be doing those things? And as you mentioned about prayer, that we can be doing those things and grow less and less reliant upon Jesus to accomplish those things that only Jesus can accomplish.
Right. Yeah.
And I think this goes for everybody who professes to be a Christian. The dangerous thing about hypocrisy is that it leads to self-deceit, self-deception. So that you begin wearing that mask, and before long, that mask has really become a part of you. I mean, that's how you live. And so there is no conviction. There is no prick of the Spirit to be reminded, this isn't real. You're putting on a game. And so we get into the rhythms of going through the motion and don't even realize that that's what we're doing, is going through the motions.
Yeah.
That there's no fire there.
I saw a quote. I can't even remember where I saw it at now. It's been a while back, but it was something to the effect of one of the greatest hindrances to a deep relationship with God is busyness for Him.
Yes.
And
there's nothing spiritual about busyness.
No.
And yet that's one of the, in the way that we think oftentimes with our type A personalities in this culture, the busier you are, the more spiritual you are. If I'm busy with Jesus things, then that means, if I'm busy serving at the church and I'm there, then that means that I'm growing in my faith and I'm walking with Him. Well, not necessarily.
Right. Yeah.
Look at the Pharisees and the scribes. They were busy all the time doing these things, and Jesus, we know what He had to say often to them. And so we need to be aware of these warnings and the types of rejection that we can give to these invitations to spend time with the Lord, and may not even be aware of it. And yet, in spite of that, and this is kind of how we'll close this morning, God is constantly pursuing us. He is constantly calling us. And that's one of the themes of this parable, is that the king constantly sends out his messengers and his servants to invite, even though they've rejected, even though they have shown disregard and apathy and hypocrisy. He says, hey, I want you to come. And so He's constantly welcoming us. And, one of the songs that we often sing here is The Reckless Love of God. And it talks about how He chases us down. He pursues us. He's constantly coming after us, because our God desires a relationship with us. He wants us to experience that joy and that pleasure and that freedom that He's promising us. And it breaks His heart when He sees us going in directions that are moving away from the things that He wants to give us,
right,
that can only be found in Him. And so I am thankful for the patience of God, Randy. I am thankful that just like the king in this parable, our king is a patient king. He is a kind king. He is a pursuing king. And there's a day coming when that's going to run out as far as His patience. There's a day coming when we're not going to have another opportunity. But until then, we find that He's constantly calling.
Right.
So looking over at our clock, we're probably about getting close to being out of time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely a good word and good warning for all of us in different aspects of our lives. So, well, we thank you again for being with us. And, as we were talking about, we do have VBS this week, and that's Monday through Thursday, beginning at 5:30. And then again, if you're looking for a church home, we'd love to have you. Wednesdays at 6 o'clock, Sundays at 9 and 10:30. So we'd love to see you here. And so thanks again for being with us.